It all kicked off in October 2024, the day King officially crashed out. He pulled out of a gas station in his BMW and nearly slammed right into a cop car. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. The cops walk up and instantly it's downhill. First thing, the smell of weed. Then their eyes lock on the gun on his hip. At that point, the decision was already made. They were hauling him in. And oh, it got worse. When they ran his name, they found that open warrant from 2022 just waiting to drag him down.
Welcome back to BuzzBuster, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad you're here. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss daily videos. Imagine hearing one line that instantly shatters every plan you had for the rest of your life. Not in private, not in some quiet office, but under bright lights, with cameras rolling, reporters watching, and the public hanging on every word. That is the devastating scene now tied to King Harris, the son of rap icon T.I. Inside a crowded courtroom, overflowing with media, the tension was already overwhelming. Journalists packed the room. Camera flashes kept firing. Every face seemed frozen, waiting for the moment that would change everything.
That warrant? For speeding, driving on a suspended license, and DUI.
When the judge finally spoke, the words landed with brutal force. Life in prison. A second later, the gavel came down. Its impact was more than a sound. It felt like a shockwave tearing through the room, bouncing off the walls and leaving everyone stunned in silence. In that split second, the atmosphere completely changed. What had been a legal proceeding suddenly felt like the collapse of an entire family's future. T.I., long known as the King of the South, has built his image around endurance, survival, and pushing through hard times. Yet none of that seemed to matter in this moment. The weight of the ruling appeared to hit him all at once. His legs gave out, he dropped to the floor, overcome by the sheer force of what had just happened. This was not a minor stumble or a brief loss of balance. It was the kind of collapse that told everyone watching just how deeply those three words had cut.
The son of T.I. and Tiny, once known for his bold attitude and wild lifestyle, now appears in a completely different light, sitting behind bars and stripped of his usual confidence. In the clip, King looks nothing like the fearless persona he often shows on social media.
What makes the moment even more haunting is the history behind it. T.I. had previously gone live to caution his son about the harsh reality of prison. At the time, it sounded like a father trying to warn his child before it was too late. Now, with that courtroom scene unfolding in real time, those earlier words seem to hang over the moment in a much darker way. For King Harris's mother, Tiny, the emotion was immediate and overwhelming. Her cry pierced through the courtroom chaos, raw and impossible to ignore. It sounded like the kind of heartbreak that takes over completely when a family realizes nothing will ever look the same again. Officers quickly moved in as she tried to get closer to her son. The room that had already been tense turned even more chaotic.
King Harris, son of T.I. and Tiny, thought street life was a game, but now the game might cost him 5 years behind bars. From skipping school to fighting at Waffle House, flashing guns in music videos, and skipping court dates, King ignored every warning his father gave him.
Everywhere you looked, there was shock, confusion, and heartbreak. No one seemed untouched by what had just unfolded. One sentence, 3 words, and in a matter of moments, an entire future appeared to come crashing down in front of the world. The room exploded the moment the decision landed. Voices shot up from every direction. Some people were in tears, others stood frozen in disbelief, and a few looked like they had been personally blindsided by what they had just heard. Still, the biggest question wasn't only about King Harris. A far more unsettling possibility hung over everything. Was he truly the target, or was this part of something bigger aimed straight at his father? Once power, public influence, and old rivalries get tangled together, a prison sentence can become more than a legal consequence. In some cases, it starts to look like leverage. What unfolded in that courtroom didn't carry the calm, steady feel people expect from justice. Instead, it had the energy of a spectacle. Every eye was fixed on the Harris family, as if they had been placed under a spotlight, with the public watching every reaction, every expression, every second of tension. The atmosphere felt less like a legal proceeding and more like a public display designed to send a message. Just when the situation already seemed impossible to contain, Another moment hit that caught nearly everyone off guard. Yet none of this appeared overnight. The emotional collapse inside that courtroom wasn't some shocking event with no warning signs. The groundwork had been laid long before that day ever arrived.
Now, after being caught with weed, a gun, and an old warrant, he's sitting in jail while T.I. and Tiny scramble to save him. The internet's divided. Is this karma for chasing a fake street image, or the wake-up call that finally forces King Harris to grow up?
Years earlier, in 2022, T.I. went on Instagram Live and said something that now feels impossible to ignore. His message was direct, serious, and difficult to brush aside. He admitted that if his son didn't turn things around, prison was the road ahead, and he made it clear he wouldn't be able to stop it. Hearing those words now, they sound less like frustration and more like a warning that was already pointing to this exact outcome. Back then, plenty of fans didn't take it seriously. Many assumed Tip was simply speaking emotionally, maybe trying to make a point in an exaggerated way. To them, it sounded like a father venting, not predicting something real. Few expected those comments to echo back with this much weight later. Now, with everything that followed, that old live stream has taken on a completely different meaning. What once seemed dramatic suddenly feels loaded with truth. Looking back, it's hard not to wonder whether the signs were visible the entire time, hiding in plain sight, while almost everyone dismissed them. At first, it sounded like one of those strict parent warnings people brush off and forget. 2 years later, those same words feel almost eerie because they line up with everything unfolding in public now. His father appeared to recognize where this path could lead. King Harris, however, seemed determined to ignore every sign. By the end of 2024, the situation looked worse than ever. Anyone watching the headlines or scrolling through Instagram could see the pattern forming in real time.
This young blood was riding through Dunwoody, Georgia, probably thinking he was just living his best life, when boom, he nearly clipped a police cruiser pulling out of a gas station. The officer stopped him for failure to yield, noticed the smell of marijuana, and observed a firearm on Harris's hip.
There were reports of dangerous driving, tense late-night confrontations, and non-stop online posturing that made it seem like he was trying to send a message. This was no longer ordinary acting out. It started to look like someone pushing further and further towards a breaking point.
Eventually, the incident arrived that changed the tone completely. October became the turning point. King was reportedly driving his BMW through Atlanta at high speed, moving with the kind of confidence that suggested the rules did not apply to him. Then everything nearly collapsed in an instant. Near a gas station, he almost collided with a police cruiser, instantly turning a reckless moment into a full-blown crisis. Once officers initiated the stop, the scene immediately raised even more concern. Smoke from marijuana was said to be pouring from the vehicle so heavily that it was impossible to miss. On top of that, a firearm was visible at his waist, displayed so openly that it only intensified the situation. At that point, there was no need for investigators to piece together clues or search for a reason to take things further. The circumstances were already right in front of him. What makes this story hit harder is that the traffic stop itself was only part of the problem. The real shock was still waiting just beneath the surface. Up to that moment, it might have looked like another chaotic celebrity family headline, the kind people react to online for a day before moving on. Instead, this incident felt different.
Go in. Can you unlock the door for me right quick? Well, you need to step out and talk to me back here. You got a warrant out for you. So now that you've been advised, you're being detained. Okay, do anything other than what I'm telling you.
It carried the sense that the behavior everyone had been watching from a distance was no longer just noise for social media. It had crossed over into something far more serious. That is what made the whole situation feel so explosive. The warning signs had been there. The public had watched them pile up. His father had apparently spoken on it long before things reached this stage. Yet, despite all of that, the spiral continued until it played out in one dramatic moment on an Atlanta street, with cameras, officers, and consequences suddenly bringing everything into focus. A past mistake tied to his name suddenly resurfaced when an unresolved warrant from 2022 caught up with him. The list behind it was serious enough to raise eyebrows: DUI,
dangerous driving, operating a car with a suspended license, and failing to appear in court. For a long time, it hung over everything like a disaster waiting for the right moment. By 2024, that moment had arrived. What happened next spread across the internet at lightning speed. Nearly 30 minutes of arrest footage flooded social media, and people could not stop watching. Viewers saw King being removed from his vehicle, placed in restraints, searched, and put into the back of a police cruiser. On camera, it didn't feel like an ordinary police stop. It played out with the kind of tension and spectacle people usually expect from a high-profile streaming documentary. The reaction online only made it bigger. Audiences didn't simply view the clip and move on. Every second was replayed, examined, and debated, as if each angle might reveal some hidden meaning. Certain people treated it like entertainment, joking that this was somehow his official moment of proving himself. Others had a very different response. To them, the whole thing was disturbing, especially because the timing made it feel even more jarring. Just weeks before all of this, King had been sharing a completely different chapter of his life. His posts focused on family, celebration, and the arrival of his newborn son. There were baby shower moments, proud updates, and even music centered on becoming a father, including a track called Dear Son. That contrast is what made the story hit so hard. In one instant, he appeared to be embracing a new role and turning towards something meaningful. In the next, his name was everywhere for footage showing him pinned against a police cruiser in a scene no one expected to go viral. The whiplash was impossible to ignore. One side of the story showed a young father stepping into a new responsibility. The other showed a public arrest becoming online spectacle in real time. Few things capture contradiction more clearly than that night did for King Harris. For T.I., though, this wasn't just another trending controversy attached to the family name. It was something much heavier. It reopened a history he knew all too well, one marked by the same kind of choices, consequences, and public fallout. He had already walked that road himself and came dangerously close to losing everything because of it. Seeing his son pulled into that same cycle wasn't just painful, it felt like watching an old nightmare come back in a new form. For T.I., it had to feel like history repeating itself in the worst possible way. Watching his son drift toward the same dangerous path, there was something painfully familiar about it. Only this time, the stakes seemed even higher. That Instagram Live from 2022, the one plenty of people brushed off as just another lecture from a famous father, suddenly carried a very different weight. Looking back, it sounded far less like a warning and far more like a glimpse of what was coming. What followed pushed everything into overdrive. This was no longer just about one headline or one bad moment. The case that came next didn't simply put King Harris under a microscope. It turned the Harris family into a public spectacle, with every move dissected, debated, and broadcast for everyone to judge. Once King Harris arrived at the courthouse, the atmosphere had shifted far beyond a normal legal proceeding. It had become a full-scale media frenzy, the kind of public drama that completely takes over the internet. Everywhere you looked, people were watching. Nobody wanted to miss a second. Crowds packed the sidewalks outside, waving signs and shouting his name with the energy of a live show. Cameras were everywhere. Influencers, bloggers, YouTubers, and self-proclaimed legal commentators swarmed the area, all chasing the same thing. One clip, one quote, one moment dramatic enough to explode online. Social media moved even faster. Timelines filled up with non-stop reactions, arguments, theories, and trending hashtags. Harris family drama, justice for King. Every side of the story seemed to have its own army online.
So I know what people gonna say, man, like they just don't understand it. It's confusing. Trust me, I don't understand it as well. It's confusing to me as well. But I will say that it boils down to wanting to be accepted.
Inside the courtroom, the tension only intensified. Prosecutors presented King as someone acting without restraint. A young man they claimed had started believing celebrity status placed him above consequences. They highlighted the videos, the public confrontations, and the arrest footage,
building a picture of someone who kept crossing lines because he assumed the rules were for other people. Their argument was clear. This was not an isolated incident. In their view, it was a pattern. That framing hit hard because it didn't just challenge King's actions, it struck at the larger image surrounding him, the privilege, the fame, and the long-running perception that he had already been given more grace than most people ever received. Suddenly, the courtroom wasn't just deciding facts, it was weighing reputation, legacy, and the cost of growing up in public while the whole world watched, judged, and waited for the next shocking turn. Even after everything, the prosecution insisted he had squandered every chance he'd been given. His legal team, however, pushed a completely different image. In their version, King wasn't some hardened threat. He was a young dad overwhelmed by pressure, struggling to carry the burden of a famous family name while making one bad decision after another, yet still capable of turning his life around. To support that picture, they leaned into the personal side of his story. The jury saw photos of him cradling his newborn son. They pointed to his efforts to build something in music. Their message was clear. This was someone adrift, not someone beyond saving. Lost, yes. Irredeemable, no. Meanwhile, the courtroom drama had already spilled far beyond those walls. Each witness appearance, every leaked image, and every piece of evidence was instantly pulled into the non-stop machine of online attention. On Twitter, users broke down testimony in long threads as if they were recapping the latest must-watch series. Across TikTok, edits stitched together courtroom sketches with intense music and flashy transitions, turning legal proceedings into spectacle.
I've never seen someone fight so hard to want to be a part of poverty. And you have a father that is just as confused as us to why you would be doing these type of things.
Over on Instagram, Tiny's emotional moments were clipped, remixed, and reposted, transforming private pain into content built for views. By the time sentencing day arrived, it felt less like a court date and more like the climax of a story the entire internet had been following in real time. All eyes were on that room. The Harris family took their seats in the front row, carrying a silence so heavy it seemed to press down on everyone nearby. Tiny gripped a tissue with both hands, holding on to it like it was the only thing keeping her together. Beside her, T.I. remained rigid, almost motionless, his posture locked tight and his jaw set with visible strain. At the defense table, King looked nothing like the confident image that had once flashed across screens and headlines. Sweat gathered as he sat there staring at his hands, almost as if they expected them to explain how everything had come to this point. No cameras needed to zoom in for the tension to be obvious. It was already written across every face in the room. What had started as a legal battle had become something much bigger. A family crisis, a public spectacle, and a brutal test of whether sympathy could outweigh judgment when the final moment finally arrived. Camera shutters snapped non-stop. Across the room, reporters traded hushed comments while fans online hammered away at their keyboards, desperate to learn whether the sentence would be lenient or devastating. At the center of it all, the judge slowly adjusted his glasses and paused just long enough to make the silence unbearable. When he finally spoke, the entire room seemed to stop breathing. King Harris, for the crimes presented before this court, you are hereby sentenced to life in state prison. The sentence landed with stunning force. A wave of shock tore through the courtroom. Tiny let out a cry. People in the gallery gasped in disbelief. Even T.I., a man whose public image was built on resilience and refusing to bend under pressure, appeared to crumble in an instant. His legs gave way beneath him. He dropped hard onto the cold courtroom floor, and the room erupted around him.
His ass going to prison. If he goddamn keep that shit up, his ass going to prison. Ain't no way around it. Ain't nothing I'm gonna be able to do about it. Can't nobody stop it but him. You know what I mean? I've already had that conversation. I've already made my peace with it. Because I know that energy. I was that energy. I know exactly how it's gonna turn out.
Within seconds, order disappeared. Security rushed in from every direction, trying to contain the growing panic. Tiny surged forward, shouting her son's name, but officers pulled her back before she could reach him. Nearby, T.I. remained on the ground, shaking, one arm raised toward the bench as he yelled that the case was a setup and that his son's life was being destroyed. For a moment, it felt impossible for the scene to become any more explosive. The courtroom was already hanging by a thread, packed with emotion, disbelief, and total confusion. Yet somehow, the tension climbed even higher. From the very back of the gallery, a figure in a hood rose to his feet. Everything changed in a heartbeat. The shouting faded into stunned silence as heads turned in unison toward the back of the room. Security hesitated. Reporters froze. Every person there seemed locked onto the same unexpected sight. The hooded man stood still, saying nothing. In one hand, he held a small USB drive. That tiny object instantly became the center of the entire courtroom. In a moment already overflowing with shock, its appearance suggested something even bigger was about to unfold. Whatever was on that device had the power to interrupt the sentencing, stop a room in chaos, and pull every eye away from the family at the center of the storm. 1 second earlier, the story seemed finished. The punishment had been delivered. The family had shattered in public, and the fallout was already spilling across the room. Now, suddenly, it felt like the real twist was only beginning. Everything changed in an instant. One hand held up a USB drive. The other was aimed straight at the judge.
His voice sliced through the chaos with chilling clarity. He declared that he had evidence and that King Harris had been set up. The courtroom froze. Shock rippled across the room. Reporters stopped writing mid-note. Officers rushed forward, trying to silence him before he could say more. Still, he got one final line out, and it rang through the chamber. The truth would come out. Seconds later, security brought him down and seized the flash drive from his grip. Cameras fired off hurried, blurry shots. People in the gallery shouted in disbelief. It didn't take long for the footage to spread. Within minutes, clips of the outburst were all over the internet, and TikTok went into overdrive. Speculation took over almost immediately. Some viewers were convinced he was a whistleblower risking everything to expose something bigger. Others argued he was just a bitter former insider trying to cause a scene. A different theory suggested he had been sent in on purpose as a distraction. Online detectives dug even deeper. Rumors claimed he had once worked as a bodyguard for the Harris family. Another wave of posts insisted his accent connected him to one of T.I.'s longtime rivals in Atlanta. No one had proof, but that didn't stop the flood of guesses.
Breaking news. Inside the courtroom today. Total chaos. T.I.'s son, King Harris, just collapsed after the judge slammed down a 5-year prison sentence.
The internet did what it always does. Memes appeared almost instantly. People edited the USB to shine like some legendary relic, joking that it looked more powerful than the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. On Twitter, long threads broke down every second of the footage. Users slowed the video, sharpened grainy frames, and insisted they could figure out exactly who the man was. Yet one question overshadowed all the others. What was actually on that USB? Mainstream news organizations stayed cautious, describing the entire moment as unconfirmed and unverified. They kept their language careful and restrained. Blogs, gossip pages, and fan accounts took the opposite approach. They jumped in head first, pushing dramatic theories and explosive headlines before anyone knew what was real. What started as a courtroom spectacle suddenly took a much darker turn. The USB evidence pointing to King Harris's innocence didn't just raise questions about the case. It opened the door to something far bigger. Something that many believed reached well beyond the trial itself. Rumors quickly spread that the flash drive was never only about King. Behind the scenes, people were whispering about possible threats much closer to the Harris family than anyone expected. That's when the story shifted from legal drama to a possible internal crisis, and the pressure surrounding the family appeared to reach a breaking point. While the disorder inside the courtroom grabbed public attention, another scene was reportedly unfolding in private later that same night. None of it appeared in formal reports.
but accounts from nearby residents, unnamed insiders, and even fragments heard over police scanners suggested that the situation at the Harris home had become deeply volatile. According to those claims, tension exploded as soon as the family returned home. T.I., described as angry and visibly shaken, reportedly confronted Tiny over what he believed was withheld information, details he felt might have changed everything for his son. Known for keeping his composure, he was said to be speaking with an intensity that could be heard throughout the house. Tiny, overwhelmed and emotional, reportedly pushed back just as forcefully. Through tears, she insisted she had nothing to conceal. Even so, those who claim to know what happened say her voice carried more than frustration. It reflected someone caught in an impossible position, trying to protect her husband, stand by her son, and hold herself together under enormous strain. Outside the home, the tension was not unnoticed. Neighbors later described hearing loud arguments, objects breaking, and heavy impacts that suggested the conflict inside had spiraled far beyond a simple family disagreement. From the outside, it sounded like a household under pressure from every direction. If those accounts are accurate, the Harris family was no longer just dealing with a public case. They were facing a private collapse in real time. The USB may have pointed toward King Harris's innocence, but it also seemed to uncover painful fractures much closer to home. What looked like one legal battle on the surface may have actually been the beginning of something far more complicated and far more personal than anyone first realized.
Dude, step out for me. Yes, sir. Place your hands behind your back for me. All right, right now you're just being detained. You're not under arrest.
What began as a heated argument reportedly turned into piercing shouts. At one stage, people even said police had to step in to settle the chaos. Once the confrontation moved out into the driveway, the image was impossible to ignore. A family, once viewed as hip-hop royalty, suddenly seemed like an empire straining under pressure, with old tensions bubbling to the surface for everyone to see. That was when the speculation took an even more unsettling turn. Questions started spreading fast. What had really been happening behind the scenes? Why did this situation seem bigger than just one public family conflict? As the story gained momentum, whispers from unnamed insiders painted a far more complicated picture. One rumor suggested Tiny had allegedly kept certain phone calls hidden from T.I. Conversations, according to the gossip, hinted that King may have received warnings in the days leading up to his arrest. Another theory pushed things further, claiming that long-standing rivals connected to Tip had finally resurfaced, and that King had become caught in a much larger conflict he never meant to be part of.
Still, the most disturbing claim was the one that stayed with people the longest. According to that version, the real damage may not have come from outside the family at all. Instead, some believe someone within their inner circle may have played a role in setting everything in motion. Not a stranger, not a distant enemy, someone close enough to have both access and a reason. That possibility changed the entire tone of the story. Suddenly, this was no longer just about rumors or pressure from the outside world. It became a story about trust, loyalty, and the terrifying idea that the deepest fracture could have originated from inside the very circle meant to provide protection. The thought alone was enough to send the internet into overdrive. Meanwhile, as tensions reportedly exploded behind closed doors, public attention only intensified. Online discussion kept escalating. The USB clip was already making the rounds. New anonymous leaks began appearing one after another, each one adding more fuel to an already volatile situation. With every repost, every theory, and every new allegation, the Harris family saga seemed to grow larger and more chaotic. By that point, King Harris was no longer simply a trending name. His story had transformed into something much bigger, something people were no longer just watching, but actively rallying around, debating and reshaping in real time. If the Harris family believed the hardest part was already over, they were about to learn the storm had only begun. What happened inside the courtroom was messy enough, yet online it turned into something far bigger.
Suddenly, the internet became a battlefield, and the Harris family found themselves at the center of it. Everything revolved around that mysterious USB clip. In almost no time, anonymous profiles started flooding social media with posts claiming they had seen what was on it. The footage they described was brief but explosive. A shaky 47-second video showing two people in a poorly lit parking lot. One of those figures appeared strikingly similar to King Harris. According to the clip, that person took a duffel bag, and right before the video ended, a faint voice could be heard saying, "This is the setup. Make sure the cameras catch him." That single moment sent the internet into a frenzy. Reaction came fast and loud. Gossip sites and blogs rushed out dramatic headlines, pushing phrases like "leaked USB blows case wide open" and "King Harris victim of a bigger game." Established media outlets were far more cautious, repeatedly describing the material as unverified. Online audiences, however, didn't seem interested in waiting for confirmation. For many viewers, the clip was already being treated like the missing piece that explained everything. The speculation didn't stop there. Soon after, more material began surfacing. A rough audio recording started circulating, with posters claiming it featured King himself. In the clip, a shaky voice says, "They're setting me up, bro. It ain't about me. They want my pops. I'm just a pawn." That recording only added more fuel to the fire. Instead of slowing down, the conversation grew even more intense, with every repost and reaction making the story feel bigger. Before the dust could settle, another alleged leak appeared. This time, the recording was said to capture T.I. speaking. The clip ended on a chilling line, "This ain't about King." At that point, the narrative had completely shifted. What began as one courtroom controversy had turned into a swirling online scandal filled with leaked files, anonymous uploads, and endless theories. Every new post pushed the story further, and every fragment of audio or video seemed to raise even more questions. For the Harris family, the pressure was no longer coming from just one case. It was now coming from millions of eyes watching, guessing, and deciding what to believe in real time. This wasn't just an attack on my name. It felt like a deliberate attempt to wear me down completely. Whether those leaked recordings were real remained unanswered. No one had solid verification. Online, though, certainty was never required. Rumors moved faster than facts, and suspicion quickly hardened into something people treated like truth. In a matter of hours, the Harris story stopped looking like a legal fight and exploded into an international spectacle. Social platforms poured fuel on the fire. Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram became non-stop engines for theories, breakdowns, and accusations. One side insisted King had been set up in a calculated political move. Others believed his own actions had opened the door to the fallout now surrounding him. Across Reddit, amateur investigators picked apart every tiny detail they could find. Blurry images were enlarged, footwear was compared, audio clips were replayed over and over. Even shadows became evidence in the minds of strangers determined to solve the mystery from their screens. The hashtags revealed how divided everything had become. Some users rallied around calls for justice for King. Others pushed messages about protecting the Harris legacy and exposing what they saw as a rigged system. Every new post deepened the split. Famous names joined in, which only made the controversy feel even bigger. Meek Mill posted that the system never treats people like them fairly, adding that this reached beyond King alone. Cardi B followed with a vague but pointed Instagram story suggesting that families get torn apart to send a warning. Artists who had previously been at odds with T.I. also entered the conversation in their own careful way. Rather than directly choosing a side, they shared guarded prayers and coded messages, clearly aware that the moment was too visible to ignore. Back in Atlanta, the mood was changing fast. Quiet conversations gave way to public outrage. Crowds gathered outside courthouses for candlelight vigils, turning sidewalks into scenes of mourning and defiance. Overnight, murals of King appeared across walls in the city, painted with halos and angel wings that framed him like a fallen icon. Demonstrators filled the streets demanding justice, while police moved in to contain the unrest. Above them, helicopters circled, adding even more tension to an already explosive atmosphere.
All the while, the noise kept building. What had started as a question was no longer being treated like one. It had become a movement, a media storm, and a defining public reckoning all at once. By that point, one mystery refused to go away. Was King Harris actually responsible, or had he been set up as a pawn in something far larger?
Breaking news, shocking reports have just emerged about King Harris. The son of rapper T.I. Sources say King was brutally attacked inside jail. And things are far worse than anyone imagined. T.I. has been seen pleading with officials, begging them to release his son before it is too late.
Just when the situation already felt out of control, even more disturbing claims started rising to the surface. These weren't the kind of stories that simply damage a public image. They were the kind that could bring down everything built around a family name. The first shockwave came from hackers. A group said they had copied everything stored on the hooded stranger's USB drive, and to prove it, they dropped a short teaser online. The clip lasted only 15 seconds, but it hit like an explosion. In the footage, prosecutors appeared to be raising glasses alongside influential people, allegedly celebrating King's conviction before the trial had even wrapped. No one knew if the video was authentic, edited, or completely fabricated. Still, that hardly mattered in the moment. Almost instantly, the internet went into overdrive. Smaller blogs treated the clip like undeniable proof, pushing it out as if the case had already been solved. Meanwhile, major news organizations rushed to confirm what they were looking at, trying to separate fact from spectacle before the story spiraled even further. Yet that leak was only the opening act. Soon after, an anonymous blogger claiming to have insider knowledge of the Harris family posted a thread that sent the rumor mill into another frenzy. Their claim was even more explosive. King's collapse hadn't happened by chance. According to that account, it had been carefully arranged. The reason, they suggested, was retaliation. The thread pointed to an old falling out connected to T.I. and an unnamed Atlanta figure described as having serious political influence. To support the accusation, the blogger uploaded blurred screenshots, strange voice recordings, and unsteady document images that looked mysterious enough to raise eyebrows but offered no clear proof. Nothing in the post could be independently verified. Even so, every piece of it was dramatic enough to keep people talking non-stop. Speculation spread faster than facts. Each new post added another layer. Each theory pulled more attention, and the entire story started feeling less like a legal case and more like a hidden war unfolding in public view. Then, just as the noise seemed impossible to top, the most disturbing rumor of all began to emerge. Nothing in the courtroom hit as hard as the accusation that came next. During a viral interview, a former Harris bodyguard appeared with his identity concealed and dropped a stunning claim. King might not even be T.I.'s biological son. In an instant, the story exploded. Speculation took over immediately. Some dismissed it as a reckless attempt to damage the family's name. Others wondered whether it pointed to a long-hidden truth Tiny had never addressed publicly. The tabloids wasted no time turning the rumor into a full-blown frenzy. Headlines pushed talk of DNA testing, secret family connections, and quiet arrangements made behind closed doors. Online, the reaction was just as intense. Viewers chose sides before any facts could settle. One camp accused Tiny of deception, while another rallied around her, seeing a mother being torn apart in public. For T.I., the moment landed as far more than gossip. It struck at the heart of his identity as a father. Outside the courthouse, cameras caught a deeply emotional scene. With tears running down his face, he shouted into a cluster of microphones, insisting that King was his son and declaring that nobody could change the past. Within hours, those images were everywhere. The public didn't just see an artist or entrepreneur in that moment. They saw a father falling apart under relentless pressure, and that picture quickly became impossible to ignore. At the same time, King's situation behind bars was reportedly becoming even more troubling.
Rumors spread that he had been placed in solitary confinement for his own safety. A leaked letter said to be from another inmate painted an especially bleak picture, describing nights when King allegedly cried out and pleaded for someone to believe him. According to that account, he felt like he was being broken down little by little. Soon after, another image pushed the story even further, the mugshot. This time, it didn't look like the standard blank-faced jail photo people are used to seeing. There was something about it that immediately raised concern and added even more fuel to a situation already spiraling in every direction. What had started as a single claim had now turned into a public collapse, a family crisis, and a media storm all at once. His eye was nearly sealed shut. A split lip and heavy bruising covered his face, and the image ignited instant fury across the internet. Within minutes, people were asking the same explosive questions. Did something happen to him before he even made it through his first night behind bars? Was this a random incident, or was someone inside involved?
Fans everywhere are asking the same questions. How did this happen? And will King Harris even survive this nightmare?
Speculation spread at a pace no official statement could match. Online support surged almost immediately. Hashtags like Protect King and Justice for King shot across social media, amplified by celebrities and public figures calling for answers and demanding a formal investigation. Every new post added more pressure. Every silence from authorities made the situation feel even more suspicious. Just as the public reaction seemed impossible to intensify, another shockwave hit. A leaked audio clip began circulating, allegedly featuring a high-ranking political figure making a chilling remark. King Harris is the perfect pawn. His father will watch him crumble, and there's nothing he can do. That recording changed everything. What had already been a tense and emotional story suddenly felt much bigger, much darker, and far more calculated. Atlanta erupted. Crowds poured into the streets as outrage boiled over. Demonstrations that began with chants and signs escalated into chaos in some areas. Smoke drifted through the city as officers deployed tear gas. Memorial displays for King were damaged or destroyed, while walls filled with harsh messages painting him as guilty before any clear answers had emerged. In a stunning turn, the Harris name, once tied to fame, influence, and hip-hop legacy, now carried a completely different weight.
At that point, the conversation had shifted. People were no longer focused only on whether King Harris was guilty. A more unsettling question had taken over. How far does this really reach? And who was operating behind the scenes? Atlanta no longer felt like just another city caught in controversy. It looked and sounded like a place under siege. Protesters packed the streets, waving signs, shouting demands, and refusing to back down. Helicopters thundered overhead, adding to the sense that everything was coming apart in real time. Some people marched quietly, holding candles and trying to preserve a sense of dignity in the middle of the turmoil. Others arrived fueled by anger, convinced they were witnessing something far bigger than one arrest. Different emotions filled the streets, but they all pointed to the same truth. Trust had shattered, and the city was demanding answers. Every new detail seemed to point to the same shocking idea. This was never only a story about King Harris. At its core, it looked like a battle over influence, retaliation, and a system bearing down on a family that would not submit. Behind the gates of the Harris home, the pressure was tearing everything apart. People close to the family described explosive arguments that echoed through the house. According to those accounts, T.I. confronted Tiny over a hidden phone call, one he believed might have shown that King had been under threat before the arrest ever happened. Through tears, Tiny insisted she would never do anything to harm her son. Even so, the fallout was immediate. Whatever confidence they once had in each other appeared to break beyond repair. Soon after, another moment sent the story into overdrive. King's sister, Zonique, uploaded a brief message to social media. Just 6 unsettling words. The truth will burn everything down. That single post ignited a storm online. Viewers and fans rushed to interpret what she meant. Some wondered if she was pointing to private family tensions.
Others believed she was hinting that the Harris name itself could be facing a deeper reckoning. With so little context and so much emotion already in the air, the reaction spread fast and fed the chaos. Just when it seemed the situation could not grow more intense, a new anonymous leak appeared. Reports claimed it was an audio clip featuring a high-ranking political figure. The voice in the recording sounded calm, cold, and direct. The message was chilling. King Harris was never the real target. His father was. The boy is just the pawn. Those words shifted the entire public mood. What had started as outrage escalated into widespread unrest. Atlanta's streets glowed with fires as crowds gathered, and anger spilled into the open. Accusations covered walls and spray-painted messages. Tensions rose sharply as demonstrators and police faced off, turning an already explosive situation into something far larger than anyone had first imagined. Many people watching this unfold became convinced the Harris family was dealing with far more than a simple legal battle over King's release. In their eyes, this looked like a desperate fight to protect themselves from pressure that reached far beyond the courtroom. At the same time, reports from inside the jail painted a disturbing picture. King Harris, once outspoken and visible, now appeared drained and barely able to speak above a whisper. Footage that circulated online seemed to show him looking hurt and exhausted, his voice shaking as he delivered a message that hit hard. If he didn't get out, he wanted people to remember that he never stopped resisting. He also claimed the real target was his father, not him. That single statement changed the way many people saw the entire case. Suddenly, it no longer felt like a story centered on one young man facing charges. Instead, it began to resemble something much larger, a powerful family under intense pressure.
His ass going to prison. If he goddamn keep that shit up, his ass going to prison. Ain't no way around it. Ain't nothing I'm gonna be able to do about it. Can't nobody stop it but him. You know what I mean? I've already had the conversation. I've already made my peace with it. Because I know that energy. I was that energy. I know exactly how it's going to turn out.
Hidden rivals moving quietly behind the scenes, and an institution that, according to supporters, might be willing to crush a son in order to wound a father. Because of that, the conversation shifted. For many observers, the biggest issue was no longer simply whether King Harris had done anything wrong. The deeper mystery became who was influencing events from the background, who stood to benefit, and whether this was only the beginning of a much wider battle. Questions like these are exactly why the story keeps pulling people in. Every new detail seems to raise even more uncertainty, and every new claim adds another layer to the tension. What looked straightforward at first now feels tangled, complicated, and far from resolved. If you've been following the case, this is the moment to weigh in. Share your perspective in the comments and let others know where you stand, because this situation still appears to be unfolding in real time. Make sure to support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, and passing it along. If important details are being ignored or pushed aside, public attention may be the only thing keeping the conversation alive. Stay tuned, because the most serious developments may still be ahead. By the time everything finally comes to light, one thing may be impossible to deny. This was never only about King. There he was, King Harris, seated in a courtroom as a family empire appeared to crack in public view. This was never just a legal fight. It felt like a collision of influence, payback, and a dynasty coming apart under pressure. At the center of it all is a question no one can ignore. Did King create this downfall through his own choices, or was he pushed into the spotlight as part of something much larger? To some, he looks like the one taking the hit for a deeper family conflict. A piece moved into place to strike at his father. Look at how many layers this story already has. A mysterious USB surfaced. Private family disputes erupted into the open. Leaked audio recordings added even more fuel. Tension spilled into the streets of Atlanta, where protests turned chaotic and the pressure only intensified. What makes this case so gripping is that nothing about it feels settled. Every new detail seems to open another door instead of closing one. The biggest mystery may not be why King Harris ended up at the center of this storm. The real mystery is who is shaping the narrative behind the scenes, and whether someone else could be dragged into it next. If you've got a theory, now is the time to speak up. Do you believe he's responsible, or does this look like a setup? Share your take below, hit like, subscribe, and send this video to anyone following the case, because stories like this don't disappear on their own. Whatever's happening here, it feels like only the beginning, and the most unsettling part may still be ahead.